Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. We've been talking about waiting lists, and this is the second episode. You probably already heard the first episode, but if you haven't, you can go back to the previous episode or just continue listening. In the previous episode, we talked about two things, and the first thing was anticipation and how anticipation plays an important role in the client liking your stuff even more. You give it to them right away, they're not as happy as if they have to wait. The second is to create a barrier, not the Great Wall of China, but enough to slow them down. And finally, we get to the third one, which is a commitment. And we'll also look at things like attraction and what happens, why does all of this waiting list seem to go right for some people and not for other people. But let's start off today's episode with the third point, which is commitment. Would you want to wait 14 years to join a Disney club? Apparently so, because Club 33 in Disneyland has a 14-year waiting list. When it was built for Walt Disney to entertain investors. But now the club has a nosebleed $25,000 joining fee, plus a recurring $10,000 a year fee. And you still have to pay your tab for the food and the drink. And if this sounds really obsessive, remember that we get on waiting lists all the time. It doesn't look like waiting lists, but it is a waiting list on a relatively modest scale. You may not think of a visit to your hairdresser as being on a waiting list, but if you've made an appointment, that's just what it is. The reservation that you made at the restaurant for next week, that's also a waiting list. That flight in October, that hotel booking, all of these things are waiting lists. So waiting lists are everywhere, but we don't seem to notice them because they're so part of our everyday lives. And when you book or put your name down, that commitment increases. Or does it? If we look at the hotel you booked, there's a reason for that specific choice. The flight, the tennis match, the restaurant booking. They're all a form of commitment. Some of them you might need to pay for in advance and some of them you pay for later. But the reason for being on that list is because you and I were seeking a level of satisfaction. However, we are more likely to show up, to pay for, or to join something if we're already on a list than if we're not on that list at all. Nonetheless, a waiting list doesn't work all by itself. If all you do is slap a form on your website, you're not going to get attention. However, if you create demand for something, then the commitment factor goes up as well. Now, if we are looking at a famous restaurant, an event, then the attraction can be a foregone conclusion. In the case of your course, your workshop, your book launch, you need to spell out the detail of why the client should even bother getting on that list. You don't have to list everything that the client is going to get. And this is very important. Clients are very smart. They know a good deal when they see one, but they can quickly get overwhelmed with dozens of reasons. Instead, pick one reason why someone should get on that list. That one reason should be extremely important. For instance, even with the home study versions that we sell off our website, we tell people that there are only 25 copies. But is that the attraction factor? No, that's not the attraction factor. That's the scarcity factor. The attraction factor is that we promise skill, not more information. So when a client buys a little book like, say, How to Take Photos with the iPhone, they know by the time they finish 10 pages of that book, they're going to be taking way better pictures with the iPhone. If they get into the article writing course and they take the home study, they know that when they read through that home study, they're able to implement, they'll be able to outline better. That frustration goes away. So there's a very strong attraction. When we combine that with the scarcity factor, which is only 25 copies, that's when people are ready to get on a waiting list, not otherwise. Recently, I was looking at a video camera, and there are video cameras. You have video cameras on your phone, you have video cameras everywhere. But this video camera did a whole bunch of things. One of the things that it did was it was able to take shots like a mid shot, a long shot, a close up, and the video camera did all this stuff. Normally you'd have to have 2 or 3 cameras in the room, and then you would have to edit it and do all that kind of stuff. And if you wanted to live stream, that would be another problem. This camera did all of that stuff. Now, it was just one point among many points. And if they wanted to get your attention, they don't need to list all the points. They need to list one point, or rather, put the focus on one point. And this is a recurring theme through most of psychotactics, which is focus on one thing. Get me to understand what that one thing is and why it's so important. So even if you're a newbie, even if you're starting out, remember that the one thing that you have, just one of those many benefits and features that you have, is probably more interesting. And if you can get me to understand why it's so interesting, now I'm going to get on your waiting list. Once a client is on your list, it doesn't mean that they will go through with the commitment. Many reservations get cancelled and changed along the way. However, the greater the loss factor, the more likely the client will go through the entire process. Therefore, even if you're able to create attraction at this point, you still want to think about the downside as well. A person that is headed to a hard-to-reserve restaurant is more likely to clear all obstructions so that they can make it to that dinner. A person that is keen to go on a course will wake up at midnight just to make sure that they sign up. If you're still kind of struggling, it sounds a bit like science fiction. It's like, this is never going to happen. But all of the businesses that are doing exceedingly well today were also struggling in the past. And if you see a waiting list with that violin teacher or that restaurant or any kind of product that's being sold, then at one point in time, they were struggling too. But what they've done is they've increased the attraction factor, increased the scarcity factor, and then there is a big downside to saying, okay, I can't do this now, because the chance of you getting that opportunity is very bleak. So you go ahead with it. And yes, I know there are lots of these concepts running up and down the place: attraction, scarcity, downside. But the core of the waiting list is, why am I going to sign up for this stuff? And is there scarcity? And if there is no scarcity, then the chances of me signing up are lower. And therefore, the commitment is lower, because now I'm not on the list. I'm not going to get any information. I'm not going to go ahead. And yep, that doesn't end well. So at this point, you have to ask yourself, what is attractive about your product or your service? What's that one point? What's that one point that you can hop on or hop upon, and then bring that point up so that the client goes, that's interesting. I want to get on that waiting list. I want to be part of that system. I want to buy that product. I want to buy that service. I want to go to that restaurant. That's the main thing. If you put in too many bullets, too many points, too many things, it looks nice to you. It doesn't look so great to the client. Well, it looks great to the client, but it's more difficult for them to make a decision when there are too many points. One point is usually a lot better than several points. And what have we covered so far? The first thing that we covered was anticipation, how you need to have some level of anticipation built in so that the client feels, wow, this is great. I waited for it. I kind of earned it. The second thing we had were barriers, and barriers could be small or big. You could have just read pages 63 to 68. It doesn't have to be read the whole book or climb all the mountains to get there. So the barriers can be in place, your anticipation in place, and the third was that the commitment factor increases as a result, provided you have the attraction and just 1 point. Now, in the world of instant everything, people come back and go, I tried the waiting list. It doesn't work for me. People want to jump the list. They don't like it when they have to go on the waiting list. And they leave and they go to the competition. At this point, you have to do a little check. Few things have to be checked here. Is the waiting list for something that's easily available somewhere else? Is there something radically different about what you're doing? Is there scarcity in place? We've been talking about this for the entire duration of these 2 podcasts. And a waiting list works because there is a factor of exclusivity. If what you're offering is available anywhere and easily, then why should I bother? And the moment you say, well, create something exclusive, people think, well, maybe I have to make this unique. And you don't have to make it unique. What you have to do is look at a space, any space, and then mark out a corner of that space. So if you're a restaurant and you mark out 1/3 of the restaurant, you just rope that area out. What you're creating is an exclusive space. If you're a trainer and you have everyone in one section and another group in one other section, that's creating a space. What you're doing is segregating. You're creating that exclusive behavior by segregating. Whether you do it online in a course, which is, this is the general people, this is the premium people, whether it's in a restaurant, whether it's in a gym, whether it's anywhere, you're very quickly creating an exclusive space. And segregation, that's the word, not uniqueness, segregation. You're segregating one group from the other, and that's what creates that power, as it were. Let me give you an example. I've spoken about Golden Moon tea. They have great teas. There's no chemicals in them. Already it's different. Already it's unique because it's very hard to find any teas without chemicals in them. Completely organic. But even so, Marcus Stout, who runs that site, he started like an insider club, and you get teas that the rest of the people who get to the website, they don't get those teas. Now, those other teas like Hashiri Sencha, that is very expensive. I think it's about $50 for half a pound. You'd think this is going to drive everybody away, but it's almost like that Nakaya pen. That's more expensive than all the other fountain pens out there. But now there is this, I can't let you have this. You have to be in this separate section. There's a segregation. It creates a scarcity. It creates anticipation. It creates everything. So segregation needs to be done. How can you segregate what you're already doing? How can you take a portion of it, move it aside? Then that becomes attractive. So if you're stuck and you're going, I have to create a uniqueness. No, you don't have to create a uniqueness. You have to create segregation, and immediately you get all of these elements in place. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. What did we cover? 3 things. The first was anticipation. And we learned that anticipation is very critical. It helps to have that gap between someone signing up and getting stuff, someone signing up and doing something. It's very important because it increases the value. Yes, I know we live in the world of Amazon where everything needs to be delivered right away. But even with Amazon, you have to wait. There is a gap. It's not instant. It's not like the store. It sounds really odd, especially in today's day and age where everything is instant. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? When everyone is going this way, you go that way and you stand out. So that's the first thing. The second thing, as we talked about, was the barriers. You need to have some kind of barrier in place, and that really helps. And the third thing was that it helps commitment. When you are on a list, when you're on a hairdresser list or a restaurant list or any list, you're more likely to buy than if you're not on that list. So getting people on a waiting list or a just cooling off period list like we have in 5000 BC, you have to wait 21 days. It's not really a waiting list, it's just a cooling off period. And I think that we get better clients. And I think we get better clients because we've had clients on 5000 BC for 8 years, 12 years, almost 15 years, which is as long as we've been going. That's very unusual for a membership site. And that's what you'll see when you join 5000 BC. But anyway, to get back, you need to have all of these three factors going for you. And that's how you're going to create a waiting list. Remember that 1 point is often better than many points. So if you're trying to attract somebody, give them just a single point and then drive home why that point is so important. And yes, we're done with the podcast. What's happening in psychotactics land? If you listened to the last podcast and the last 5 podcasts probably, you'll know what 6th April is all about. 6th April is when the article writing live course goes online. So what does this mean? It means that we're going to have the course in July and I'm going to conduct the course. And that means that for the next 12 weeks in July, August, and September, you're not going to get much sleep because you're going to become a writer. You're not going to get more information about article writing. You're literally going to write. And I'm going to critique your material on a constant basis. So if you write once a day, I will critique it once a day. If you write 5 times a day, I will critique it 5 times a day. That's very intense. And that's the 6th of April. That's when you sign up. And the 7th of April is for psychotactics list. 6th of April for 5000 BC. If you don't want to be in that intense zone, but you still want the article writing course, then we're talking about the 12th of April. And that's when you can get the home study. But you have to be on the waiting list. And the waiting list is at psychotactics.com/awgoodies. And at AW Goodies, that's article writing goodies, by the way. So AW Goodies is where you'll get goodies. And then if you want to sign up, that's your call. If you don't want to sign up, that's your call too. But remember that your commitment is going to increase by being on the waiting list. So there is a pretty good chance that you will at least consider the article writing course. And I think you'll find this course to be exceedingly good. It's the toughest writing course in the world. In about 4 weeks, we're headed to Singapore. We're doing a workshop on landing pages. Then we go to Brussels and we do the workshop on landing pages yet again. And then we go on vacation to Italy, North Italy. And then we wind our way back to Rome, go back to Singapore, and then back to New Zealand. So what's going to happen later on? Is there a landing page workshop in the US, for instance? That's what I keep getting asked. And the answer is yes. And the answer is that workshop is already half filled. If you want to make your way to that workshop, it's in Houston on the 28th, 29th, and 30th of October. And you have to go to Psychotactics workshops and check out how you can get onto the landing page workshop. If you've never been to a Psychotactics workshop, it's a lot of fun. We do stuff that is completely unlike anything you've seen in any workshop. And I don't care how many workshops you've been to, you will totally enjoy yourself. You will enjoy the people. It's like a reunion, but the nice kind of reunion. So that's it from me and Psychotactics Land. I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye. Still listening? Last week we had a goal setting webinar, and if you missed it, then we will send you a link at some point in time where you can get it. It's different from other goal setting webinars. Lots of cartoons, lots of animation, which is quite different from what you've seen online. You expect different from us, we give you different, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about is just incremental stuff. And 2 years ago, we went to India in 2016, in July 2016. And when we got back, we stopped having the breakfast that we were having, which was probably eggs and bread and stuff like that. And we started making dosas. Well, I started making dosas. And a dosa is not a crepe and it's not a pancake. And yes, it kind of looks like it, but then so does a pizza. So let's call it a dosa. And if you go to an Indian restaurant, a South Indian restaurant, you can try this out. It's a great meal to have. And I would suggest that you do that. Anyway, so I started making 3 dosas every day because we eat 1.5 each for breakfast. And I realized that about 700 days have passed and 3 dosas. So that's 2,000 dosas. 2,000 dosas in 2 years. I think I've got pretty good at it, but there's still a lot to learn. And on that dosa note, I'll say bye for now, and we'll see you in 5000 BC or at a psychotactics workshop. Bye for now.